Hello, so good to be with you today. In Mark 10, verse 47, we hear this. He began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet. As God's people, our history is thousands of years old, and so we tend to take the long view, not so the ever-roving eye of the national news. Media may alight briefly on morally urgent questions of justice in our society and the dignity and value of a human life. When it does, it's a blessing because these issues are near and dear to the heart of God. They have been from the days of the prophets to the teachings of Jesus. Unfortunately, a few short weeks later, the endlessly distractible media moves on, chasing something else. Whether the world is watching or not, will we, as God's people, still be bridging those gaps and those divisions in our society with the love of Christ? Once, when Jesus was walking along in a crowd, a blind man was lying right in the street, and he cried out in his distress. He was in trouble, and he cried out for Jesus. Do you remember what the crowd did? They told him to be quiet. Think about that for a minute. Here's a man who's in trouble, and the majority of the people tell him to be quiet. But what does Jesus do? He stops. He stops the crowd. He stops the journey to the next thing they were going to do. It can wait. Jesus wants to hear this man's trouble and to help. Remember that those same people who were telling this distressed man to shut up a minute ago suddenly turned smiling attention on this poor man and brought him to Jesus in Mark chapter 10. You know, people haven't changed. We are just as fickle today. I've often wondered why it is so hard in the small efforts that our church has made to get volunteers to go into our poor communities. There are already existing ministries there that need help. When we step up as a church, it seems to always be the same faithful few that show up. And why is it so hard to develop consistent interest in our missionaries who are serving poorer nations? If we are suddenly concerned to show our virtue, how is it that that's different than major corporations that rush in and line up to make sure that they are projecting the right culturally popular image of the moment? Well, the blind man wasn't the only one blind that day. He had been lying on that road a long time. But you see, the people were blind to his suffering. Jesus heard him that very first time, and he stopped everything in order to help him. Jesus wasn't projecting an image. This is who he was. He truly cared, and he stopped to help. The blind man in trouble was not some sort of symbol. He was a human being, and Jesus afforded him that dignity. Jesus saw him. Jesus heard him. Let's look into our hearts. Where is our compassion? Will our kindness still be there after the world has again turned its attention and become blind to those in need? I want to thank you for joining us today for this devotional reflection. If you're looking for a place to worship and grow in faith, we invite you to visit us at the Collingswood Church of Christ. We're located at 300 Whitehorse Pike in Collingswood, New Jersey. We would love to welcome you with open arms. If you found today's message inspiring, consider subscribing to our channel for more daily devotionals and share this video with a friend who may need to hear these words of encouragement. Until next time, may God's grace be with you.